He has his wife Laura and the King of Cambodia move aside so he can sit next to Putin and talk about it. But he knows the cameras are on him. So he's trying not to make it a big visible confrontation. But he's telling Putin, what are you doing here? This is not right. You can't be doing this. And Putin is basically telling him to butt out.
The president who had looked into Putin's soul had now reached a different conclusion about just who Vladimir Putin was.
I remember the president saying, I don't know how, but we've lost him. Putin was going in a different direction, and there was little that the administration and President Bush's mind could do to put Putin back on that course.
Nearing the end of his presidency, Bush would leave the increasing conflict with Putin to his successor.
They let Vladimir Putin arguably get away with it in Georgia. One message that Putin clearly takes from that in hindsight is that he is able to use the military as a tool of achieving his political ends outside the borders of Russia, and that the West will complain and lecture, but basically will let him get away with it. That's a terrible message, and I think it is the prologue for the Ukraine disaster.
All Americans can celebrate, red or blue, black or white.
First African-American president of the United States.
President Obama is set to land in Russia.
Less than a year later, Vladimir Putin would meet newly elected Barack Obama face to face.
President Obama has a big meeting ahead.
Sizing up his third American president.
Shadows of the Cold War will loom over his summit.
I remember their first meeting in July of 2009 at Putin's dacha, just outside Moscow. They're much different personalities. President Obama's initial question, about 10 seconds, led to a 45-minute, monologue by Putin.
Putin is extraordinarily calm, matter-of-fact. He doesn't get ruffled. He may say hard things, but he says them in a very calm, almost matter-of-fact way. Unfortunately, President Putin simply speaks mistruth after mistruth and tries to misinform, but he does it as easily as he breathes.
Putin obviously did not respect him. Putin looked at the United States, and I think it surprised him that a black man would be elected president of the United States. I think that was a surprise to him. And who knows, I think there could be just an element of flat-out racism that he somehow thought Obama was not his equal, that Obama did not deserve to be treated as his equal.
Clearly the relationship not quite as warm as maybe it has with other world
Leaving
leaders.
Russia, the new president had another way to deal with the problem of Vladimir Putin.
Putin gave him an hour-long lecture, and I don't think Obama likes to be lectured. That was a real clash of the egos there.
President Obama has gotten to Moscow, and Putin is not buying it, and Putin is still in charge.
He gave the Putin file to his vice president, Joe Biden.
Biden sometimes joked that his job as vice president was to do the things that Obama didn't want to do, and that does include the subject of Russia. And here's Joe Biden, who's been talking about Russian issues since 1973. And they said, all right, Joe Biden, this is your issue.
A senator over 4 decades and chair of the Foreign Relations Committee, Biden, like Putin, had been shaped by the Cold War.
Speaking for myself, I don't trust the Soviets. I don't trust them to do anything short of what they can get away with.
The paradigm through which he saw Putin was similar to the paradigm through which he viewed the other authoritarian leaders. He saw them as thugs.
I caution against being excessively optimistic about Mr. Putin and his intentions.
Now, as vice president, Biden traveled to Moscow to meet with Putin. The two men smiled for the cameras, but later things were different. Putin argumentative, Biden wary.
It's a seminal meeting in part because of the mythology that is created out of it. It's kind of like a marker being put down, I think, between two men who ultimately we thought would find themselves in this great clash that we're in today.
Biden would write about the moment in his autobiography.
It was long and contentious. Putin was ice-cold calm throughout, but argumentative from the start to finish.
Well, I was there with then Vice President Biden. The message that he's sending is, let's not, we're not here to kid each other. We need to speak clearly. We need to speak directly.
I'm looking into your eyes, I told him, smiling. I don't think you have a soul. He looked at me for a second and smiled back. We understand each other, he said. And we did.
When Biden said that to me, I had